All right. Hey there, I'm Casey Kerr, and you are watching Nightcap. I have a really awesome guest tonight that I'm really excited to introduce you to. Her name is Jenna Greene.
Hello.
And hi,
Hi, Casey.
Jenna. Jenna is a Celtic singer, songwriter, and harpist. She writes songs that are inspired by myth, magic, I'm totally cheating here reading this, empowerment, and affirmations. She travels the whole country performing at festivals, Celtic festivals, goddess, Faerie, and Renaissance festivals, and she just released her fourth and fifth albums live in concert in Wings. And I'm super excited because Jenna actually wrote a song for me based on the work that I do and affirmations that I've written. And I'm hoping that she's going to be able to sing a little bit of that for us tonight live. So we'll see what happens. So welcome, Jenna. Thank you so much for being my guest tonight.
Thank you for having me. It's so exciting.
Yay!
Congratulations on your new show.
Thank you. We're having such a blast here on Tuesday nights. It's just been such a learning experience, just such an amazing thing where, well, you know what it's like when you're diving out there and you're doing something that you love and you can't not do it.
Right.
You just spend, your time working at it, hopefully getting better at it. Let me know if I'm getting better at it, people. Share some love with me here, right? But you know what it's like when you're out there doing the thing that you love to do, feeling like you're in your purpose, you're living in your brilliance, and you're working at it, working toward it, and growing within it. And it's just an amazing experience, is it not?
Right. And it's exciting when you're in the middle of it and you're like, wow, it's working. I got past my fears and I'm doing it and it's working. It's happening. Things are coming together. And, it's easy to sit there and say, if I follow my bliss, everything's going to work out. But when you get past your fears and you get into the middle of it, it's a scary, wild ride, but at some point you're in the middle, like the calm in the middle of the storm, and you're like, wow, I can do this. I can ride this storm and have fun with it.
Yeah, that, I think we all experience that to different degrees and at different times. And you said something that is so spot on. It's being able to get through your fears. And, it's so funny because you and I have had a whole bunch of conversations about what you do, and we're going to talk more about that.
Right.
Well, actually, why don't we just do that? Tell me. I want to know what it's like. I know what it's like for me when I'm doing what I love to do. What is it like for you when you're writing songs and when you're performing? Do they feel different from each other? What are those experiences like? Walk us through your experience like that.
I've always kind of explained my songwriting process. I think every songwriter has a different process or a different way that they're inspired, that the muse speaks to them. And I've always described my process as my kind of higher goddess self kicking my everyday self in the ass, because every song is really about me pushing through my fears or pushing to my goals, or kind of trying to work something out in my head when I really need to be working it out with my heart. And so that theme comes up for me over and over again through my songwriting. And I think that's how the muse speaks to me, by kicking me in the butt sometimes. So.
And so how is that different from when you're performing, when you're singing, or when you're playing your harp?
It's absolute bliss for me to be able to write a song and then perform it live and sing it and accompany myself on harp. And then a lot of times musicians will accompany me as well. And I'm up on the stage with the lights, and I'm always amazed that there's actually an audience there and they're listening and they're understanding. And so to have that connection when you're a person who writes so much from spirit, and then to have people in the audience there either nodding or meditating or saying, yeah, I get this. It's just that connection with people where they're like, oh, I've been there, and oh, I'm there right now, and that's okay, that's where I need to get. And so that's my bliss right there. That's the core of it.
I've always felt I have take singing lessons on my intention board as something that I've always wanted to do. because in my mind, to be able to stand up in front of people and sing, especially sing a song that you've written from your heart that's so deeply a part of who you are, I feel like standing up and singing in front of people is one of the most courageous and brave things that you can do. And that if you can do that, no matter how you sound, no matter almost what words you're saying, that there's a level of fearlessness and freedom that you have. Do you feel like that when you're up there doing that? Does it feel that way for you?
It does feel that way for me, but it took a long time for me to get there. I did come from a place of a lot of stage fright, and I was actually taught by this amazing speaker who I saw one time at a fairy festival. His name was Mark, and he said, the way you get over stage fright is you realize that there's always, no matter what audience you're in front of, there's always an angel in the audience. There's always someone there who's looking to root you on, no matter how you sound, no matter what you're doing. They're looking to have that heart-to-heart connection with you, and it's so true. There's always somebody. And I think for musicians, especially for indie musicians, there's always going to be another indie musician in the audience who knows that you need that audience, you need to be cheered on. And so that is a huge way to help with stage fright. But I find that I can sing to a humongous room of perfect strangers, but I still kind of have that nervousness with people that I'm very, very close to. Like if I'm at a family reunion and I sing, so everybody's got their different ways that they haven't quite gotten over their nerves. Everybody's got that. Like a perfect example of that, one of my favorite influences is Enya, and Enya almost never toured because she had such horrible stage fright. And so I imagine, what if she had let that stage fright hold her back so much that she didn't even have the bravery to go in the studio, we wouldn't have her beautiful music. So definitely everybody has those fears, and I think it's all about rejection and about self-confidence and all of those things that we all have nagging inside of us.
Yeah. You know what I was wondering, like as we're talking about this, I wasn't expecting you to tell me that you had stage fright, because I've seen you perform, just in small, really small venue, obviously where we met, and then hearing your albums, hearing your music, it didn't occur to me that you would have been feeling the fear while you were performing. So I was really wondering about the fears that occur when you're not on the stage, when you're not being inspired by your muse. Like, what are the challenges that you've faced putting your music out there in a bigger way and getting yourself in front of those crowds? Tell me a little bit about the fears that you've faced with that.
Oh, so many, so many. I feel like I'm constantly battling these dragons, and I actually wrote a song about it called "The Cave," and it's based on. There's a beautiful saying by the late great mythologist Joseph Campbell that said, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." And he describes it as you go into the cave and you're supposed to fight the dragon and grab the treasure, and you find out that the fighting of the dragon is the treasure.
Right.
And it's such a beautiful metaphor, and I feel like I'm constantly facing those dragons, but the dragons, we create them. We create those dragons, so you don't need to fight them. They can actually be your friends. So I had such humongous anxiety with the live album. I just put out a studio album, which this is going to be my fourth studio album, but the fifth album that came out was a live concert recording, totally new territory. And for any artist, I think for any creative person, any spiritual person, when you go into that new territory and you're trying to follow your soul's purpose, but you're also in new territory, it's so scary. It's so scary, and it's just that fear of the unknown. And then once you get through it with the little baby steps, then you're on the other side and you're, whoa, I did that, and I did it in a new way. So that was a big one for me to get that one done.
Well, and congratulations on doing that.
Thank you.
Isn't it funny? I think that that quote that you just shared with us is such a perfect way to describe it. And I honestly feel like when you walk through your life, when you face the challenges that that come up to you, whether they're the little ones that you deal with in the moment to moment, the small crisis, or the big ones, right? That so many of us are kind of wired to be thinking of life as the destination versus the journey. Right. And even if from a big picture perspective, you don't classify yourself as doing that, you can sort of tell that you do that based on like how you approach these challenges when they happen. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like I made a very conscious decision facing a challenge myself last week where instead of doing it that way, like I normally would have, like, let me just get through this, let me just get through this, let me just get through this, I actually approached it as, let me use this as an opportunity to prove to myself how strong I am, and to, you know, set the intention that I'm going to be present with every single one of the fears that I feel, and I'm going to allow myself to feel them and to have that experience and to watch myself come through it on the other side. Right. And this challenge that I was facing was a big fat doozy. So it was no easy task, but it's amazing how, even though it was an emotional one, and even though I cried a little bit and I was really afraid of what we were potentially facing, and knock wood, all is well, it really showed me that experience of doing that and proving that to myself, like, was the treasure, I guess. There's no other way to put that, because it left me feeling like, well, I can do anything. I can do this. No matter what happens, even if the worst happens, it's going to be okay.
Right.
Yeah. And I feel like if you have that presence of mind walking into these experiences, or kind of, you know, bracing yourself for not bracing yourself, actually doing the opposite, preparing yourself for them by
more of an opening.
Yes.
Yeah.
I used to brace against life. Like, okay, everything's clenched, I'm ready for you. You know? And that's like you hoping to avoid stuff. So I love that quote. I think I'm going to dig it up, print it up, and hang it up someplace. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that you've faced that have that maybe that you didn't. Okay, so in hindsight, that you're looking at them like, okay, I didn't handle them the way I would like to have, but you learned from your experience. Tell me about some times, or one time, when you kind of fell victim to that fear, and it prevented you from maybe doing or achieving or experiencing what you wanted to.
A really good example is artists, a lot of times these days, independent artists do something called crowdfunding. Which, have you heard of it?
Yeah.
So I did, for my Wild Earth Child album, which was my second album, I did a oh, thank you. I did a Kickstarter, and it was a very successful Kickstarter. And so I had these different levels that people could pledge, and at each of these different levels, people would get a different prize or a different thank you gift. And so what you do with crowdfunding is you set a deadline that you're going to be done with, and then you're going to ship those things out. But it's hard when you're doing a creative project. It's very hard to put a deadline on it. And you can even say, okay, I'm going to put a deadline on it that's 6 months out from where I expect. Things can still happen. Create things with you know, you're dealing with recording equipment and computers and a production house and coordinating all these musicians and then the shipping and everything. And so sometimes the date goes past, and I've had this happen to me, and I've had this happen to several other artists, that you have a deadline and you're missing the deadline. And one thing that I've learned through crowdfunding is that your fans really don't care. They really don't care. They're just so excited for you, and they trust, you know, you have a rapport with them, and they trust that you're going to get it out. They know that you're not trying to screw them over, and they know that creative deadlines happen. And so what I learned through that, because I panicked and I panicked and I panicked, and then there was another project that I did, same thing, that I panicked and panicked because I didn't have it to my people the way I wanted, when I wanted, and this isn't how I envisioned, and oh my gosh, a month has gone by. And you know what, they just, I find that people just want to connect, they want to be a part of it, and it's such an honor when people want to be a part of your art or your creativity or your spirituality or any of those lovely things that we do. So that was a big lesson for me, is to not panic, to trust my community. That was a huge thing that I learned this past summer, because I'm a single mom. Mm-hmm. And I'm raising a 13-year-old, beautiful 13-year-old daughter. And so she's very rooted in our community, and she's a part of all of these different things. She's in her own band now, and she's in chorus and all of these different things. And so I can't take off and go on the road because, one, I can't bring her with me and then I'll be heartbroken because I'll miss her every day. And then the other thing is I can't be pulling her out of school. And so I can't tour the same way that I used to. I used to go on the road for as long as I wanted to and have a great time. I can't do it that way anymore. And so this past year, I worked with all of my friends who do all these local fairs and festivals, and I just found all of these little things. And one thing that I really learned this year is, if I just trust my community and just put the word out there, the people will come, and they did. And I ended up having my most successful year ever at home. And there's a saying in music that you never play in your own backyard. And the reason that you don't, as a general rule, you don't play in your own backyard is that you'll put out an announcement and people will say, oh, well, she's in Boston and I live in Boston, I can see her anytime. So there's that whole thing that's, as a general rule, as general booking. And I was able to kind of dispel that myth this year and really make some roots for myself and make some new connections, friends of friends who live within the state. And it really went well. And I had a humongous fear of, because I made a really good living on the road. So I had a humongous fear of, oh my gosh, if I'm not on the road, my music career is going to fail. Mm-hmm. My art is going to fail. I'm not going to be able to do it anymore. People are going to think I'm not doing it. That was even bigger. Is people are going to think I'm not doing it. Who are those people? Those people don't really exist. Yeah. So that whole they thing that we do to ourselves, what are they going to think? And there is no they. So.
I was making notes as you were talking, because you hit on 4 big touch points that I teach on all the time, and they are all the ones that made the big difference for you. The first one is that you're following your own rules. You're making this up as you go along based on what works for you, right? For you and for your daughter. And that you're trusting that when you do that, and when you step outside of your comfort zone and step outside of what is traditionally known as the norm, that you're going to be okay. It's almost like the trust itself becomes your safety net, right?
Right.
I never thought of it that way before, and I like it. I'm going to have to write that down. The judgment piece of it, when you can let go of judgment and you recognize that, yeah, you know what, there might be people who judge you, but they're not as important as you are and how you feel about yourself. And when you can get yourself to a place where you acknowledge that people may be judging you, and they may not be, but I always feel like it's safer, and it takes more courage and bravery to admit that people may be judging you and to release, your connection to it or your fear of it.
Right.
Because then you're not lying to yourself then. Do you know what I mean?
Right. But I think the self-judgment is even more dangerous. And I think for creative people, you tend to compare yourself to other artists. And I found myself all the time comparing myself to artists who don't have kids. Yep. Of course they can go on the road. And when my daughter's in college and I'm heartbroken because she's in college and she's left the nest, I can go on the road. Right. So it's not like I'm a failure because I can't go on the road. I'm trying to be an awesome mother and I can't go on the road. So there's definitely had to be a whole reframing and pulling myself out of self-judgment. And a huge part of getting yourself out of such self-judgment is stop comparing yourself to others. It's so important. That's another lesson I'm trying to teach myself this year.
Yes. Well, stop saying trying, because you're doing
right.
it.
I mean, I am doing.
And just as you are committed to being the best mother that you can possibly be, you're not trying, you are doing it, as evidenced by the choices you're making and the priority that your daughter is for you, right?
Right.
But that the fourth one I wanted to say was the whole idea that you're enough. Like, not only your talent is enough, but what you're doing in any given moment is enough. When you're always doing your best, then that's enough. And it doesn't matter if your best doesn't look as good today as it will tomorrow, or as it did 2 weeks ago, or whatever the time frame is. It doesn't matter. You're enough. And that comparison piece is huge too, because most of us don't just compare ourselves to other people, although that is deadly because it does bring you into that place. You're comparing your sort of insides to somebody else's outsides. Right. But the other comparison that I find happens all the time, and I did it myself for years, is that I compared my current self, whatever my present moment self is, I compared her with my future self, who I had, visions of being masterful, fully evolved, like what you're capable of, right? You've seen your potential, your brilliance, your talent. I've seen mine. I know what I'm capable of, but we're comparing our being, right? Yeah. Our spiritual being who's limitless. We're comparing her to our human being who has limits and limitations.
Right.
And when we do that, we set ourselves up like, oh shit, what I'm doing right now doesn't look like the best I can possibly do. So we forget that we're doing the best we can.
Right.
And when you remember that, doesn't it make all the difference? Because then you can just be free to do what you love to do. And then people feel that, and that's what draws them in, right?
Right. And you've got to give yourself a break. And I really feel like, especially women, and especially American women, we don't give ourselves a break. We meet a goal and we raise the bar, and we meet a goal and we raise the bar. And like you said, we're constantly comparing ourselves to that perfect idea of ourselves. And I watched a really old art documentary, and it talked about women and their own self-image. And there was one part that really hit me, where the artist was saying that when women look in the mirror, they not only see themselves, but they see the self that they want to be seeing. Mm-hmm. That we're always comparing to something else, instead of standing there and saying, I'm enough. I'm enough. I'm beautiful the way I am. I'm good enough the way I am. So yeah, that's so important. It's so important, and it's a process, and you can have it totally together one moment, and then it falls apart the next. But it's something to constantly be striving for, is to give yourself that break.
Yeah.
I did all of these shows. I would do these back-to-back shows, and I also I work as a massage therapist and a healer as well. So I'm doing all of these massages and Reiki and sound healings, and then I'm doing all of this music and workshops on the weekends. And there were probably 2 months where I didn't take a break at all, and all I would do is beat myself up for leaving my sound gear in the kitchen. Of course, I'm exhausted at the end of the day. I'm not going to put it away. And I never give myself a break for that. And in hindsight, I wish I had just said, you know what? I'm doing amazing things right now, back to back, putting out 2 albums back to back. Shut up, Judge.
Yeah, that's all there is to it. And one of the things that I wanted to point out is, a minute ago, you said we meet the goal and we raise the bar. We meet the goal, we raise the bar.
Right.
And what happens to a lot of people is they don't meet the goal because they set up goals that are ridiculously high, way out of your human abilities, not factoring in any of your human limitations. And we all do that. Not everybody, but when you're struggling and when you find that you're frustrated and you beat yourself up and your circumstances don't match what you want them to be, almost always, without exception, when you look at the goals that you set up or that person sets up, they are very unrealistic. They're based on what your limitless potential is without factoring in your human, frailties and limitations and real life, real life stuff. And we talked about that a few weeks ago on the show, and I just felt like it bared mentioning because not everybody meets the goals and then raises the bar. And half the time, when you set those unrealistic expectations and you don't meet the goal, then you beat yourself up for it and you feel like you're not as good as you thought you were. And that's proof that you are indeed not good enough. And then the cycle starts again. So you start with another unrealistic goal when you finally, get yourself back together and you I'm going to do it this time. And here's another big goal that's too big for me. And I'm going to put myself through all of this crap and beat myself up. And look where it gets you, So, listen, I wish we had longer and longer to talk. I want to save a couple of minutes so you can sing my song if that's okay.
I wanted to show these too because I'm so very proud. So this is the live album that I was talking about that I felt was never going to get done. That's live in concert. And this is my debut of my artwork on a CD cover as well. That Celtic artwork is mine.
That's beautiful.
So that was another goal that I met. And then this is Wings. This is my live studio album. And I'm just so happy with how this came out. It's all about just transformation and hope and overcoming and getting to those dreams and goals. And I'm just so happy with how that one came out.
Awesome. Okay. So Rachel, our producer, just gave us a message that says it's best for us not to sing live, but that we're going to record you singing it. So after the show, I'll close out the show, and then afterwards we're going to have you sing, and then that will be in the recording. So
okay, great.
Awesome. All right.
Awesome.
Should have checked that out with the boss first. I checked it out with one of my bosses. Awesome. Jenna, it was such a pleasure to have you here. Just really
thank
awesome.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're so inspiring to me, and you're such a light to so many people, and keep doing what you're doing because you're amazing.
Oh, thank you, sweetie pie. And we will include the links to Jenna's albums too, right, on there?
Yeah.
Are there links where they can get them?
Yeah.
Do you have a website or anything that you want to share live now while we're still on the air?
The easiest way to find me is jennagreene.net. So Green with an E at the end, jennagreene.net.
Awesome. All right. Well, I hope that you guys catch the recording afterwards and listen to her song. Jenna sings. She has the most beautiful voice, and her stuff is just amazing. And, just a real quick plug for Jenna is that she and I talked about doing this where she would write this song for me based on words that I use all the time, affirmations that I use, things that I use with people. And I had this sort of vision of her being able to do this for other women business owners, other purposepreneurs and passionpreneurs and missionpreneurs, where, this stuff, what she put together for me was so much more beautiful than I could have imagined. I gave her, like a handful of loose words, and I thought it was just going to be chanting to single words. And the way she put it together was just spectacular. It was beautiful. So if this rings your bell a little bit and it's something that you're interested in, then definitely reach out to Jenna and let her muse work through her to help you bring out the words that mean so much to you and that will speak to your tribe. So from my heart to your heart. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Thank you, Casey.
Yeah, and thank you to all you guys out there who are watching live and who are watching after the fact. It means so much to have you be on this journey with me and here sharing this with me. And I so appreciate you watching and sharing and forwarding and sending any of this along to people that you know will benefit from it. So thanks for being a part of this movement. I love you. Mwah. All right. Thanks for joining us here at Nightcap. I'm Casey Kerr. Bye-bye.